Hello. In this video I will talk a little bit about a fear of mine. It's a fear that I have developed over the years. Maybe it's a fear of yours as well, and maybe you are aware of it in the same kind of manner that I am, or think I am at least. Maybe you're not, and perhaps it's not even bothering you. I think it started for me a pretty long time ago, but there was this point in my early 20s. I was in some kind of temporary low in my life, and I started contemplating over how I was achieving happiness for myself. And I realized that the actions that I took seldom gave me any happiness worthwhile. Nothing that would really, build up over time or create some kind of foundation for it to build upon, at least. It seemed to me as if I were merely shoveling around gravel, so to say. Never did any spontaneous formations arise out of my efforts, or so it seemed at least. We all know ourselves best, and I knew that the kind of kicks and thrills I was getting were not the long-term kind of sort. I could see what everyone else around me seemed to be doing in their pursuit of, getting the smiles to outweigh the frowns. And sometimes I would sigh, I would applaud, I could partake, imitate, despise, frown upon. Well, up to this point in my life, I had not had many environments that were mine, so to say. But it was obvious to me that as much as anyone else, I wanted this kind of, landscape, mental territory. And reflecting on it now, I had been indulging in any kind of opportunity that I had spotted. I had gone deep down into the worlds of online gaming, deep down into the dreams of realizing what others had been presenting. But not so often had I, on my own command, realized something totally new, something others would not have thought of doing. But why was this? Why were I always longing for that low hanging fruit, and not the kind of fruit that would hang or sit in a tree or bush, in a hidden place, somewhere hidden in plain sight, somewhere, some place no one else had explored, perhaps. For me, it was always these kind of naive and spontaneous reactions to my surroundings and my environment. And how could come I would both want and at the same time despise what I was longing for and also see in others around me? How come I would long for drinking myself to the point that I would not function? How come I would dream of realizing others' experiences, or experiences as I thought of it? How come I would grab every chance of escaping into my own thoughts and my own plans, where I was having just about the same thing that others seem to be having? I've never been a person to stop myself from doing what was attracting me, but I've at the same time always also questioned it. Why do I behave and act like I do? And I've been thinking about these kind of things, and altogether, the meaning of life from I think a pretty young age. The first time you realize that the person has died perhaps can cause these kind of thoughts. And I know for myself at least that my first encounter with the church and the preaching also planted some kind of thought about the bigger picture in me. Did the God and the happenings and the rules that the people in church spoke about really exist? What was this God entity? And these kind of stories exist all around the world. You gotta do this, you gotta think of this and that, and I have to partake in this for a greater reason. And I realized that in every child that encountered these kind of preachings, teachings, arguments, guidelines, rules, rituals, traditions, whatever, and every person that encountered this, there must be a doubt, because there's no real natural evidence to grab from your surrounding to verify what is said. The best verification you get is from the interactions with the people in this kind of environment and the people that have this kind of collective mindset. So it's a very natural doubt, I would say. And the doubt that perhaps this was, my biggest fear that was crawling up on me or towards me. And against such an opponent, the Tao must be very strong. And the will to persist in your natural state must also be very strong, to not oblige to these guidelines or rules. So, to get back to where I started this video, my greatest fear so far in my life, in its conclusion and over time accumulated state, perhaps, could be merely a dream and a plan acted out as just a small portion of another person's dream and plan acted out in this world. I realized that my own life and the sum of it could be shaped, could be molded and finally crystallized, just as if in a cage of another mind. I realized that out of all the people in this world, many of us seem to live or seem to have lived within hidden restrictions. And perhaps not because they were consciously put there in front or around people, but only because of the inability to detect and to see past these kind of walls. Because in some kind of a natural way, our own hidden secrets and our own untold wishes and hopes seem to create invisible walls, walls that we could actually walk right through if we only knew that they did not really exist. My biggest fear in this life so far is that I'm nothing but a seed planted on a tiny island far from any other land, and on this island I will live my whole life, laughing, crying, loving, experiencing the whole human experience without ever knowing that my small part of this world was nothing but a hallucination of some sort. A hallucination that obviously had the possibility to make me happy, to make me feel like I lived a fulfilling life. A small part of this world that I could shape and experience over time. Think about it. Think about all the people that's ever died, in perhaps a war, that's ever been hanged or killed because of their actions unrelated to war or other, evil or inhumane acts. People that's been put in exile because of their genuine and all human reasoning. All the people that have been forced by rules and reasons that they did not make up on their own, or they did not reach their conclusions of those on their own, and are not really able to make those conclusions. And this is forced upon them from a distance that spans, way over time and the distance on this planet. So, would you really accept being a seed within a sealed bottle? And that bottle has everything that you need to, live a whole life. Would you really be happy if you knew on the day that you would die that the life you had been living so far had been but only a portion of what it could have been? Imagine seeing thousands of little glass bottles sprouting to the brim of life, all the aspects of the human experience filling up all around you, like thousands of these glass bowls, and you're in one of them. And yeah, as you see the other bottles, you recognize that kind of bottle as the same kind of bottle that you have for yourself. So you're not, dissatisfied by this fact alone. But what if suddenly, a giant creature passes by your bottle and all the other bottles around you, just walking there, minding their own business. But you would realize, and you would see, you would feel, you would know that this creature is of the same kind as you, only not in this kind of bottle. This creature doesn't mind you in your bottle, doesn't mind the other people in their bottles. Perhaps thinks you're crazy for staying there. Perhaps wants you to be in that bottle. Doesn't owe you anything, perhaps. So there's nothing you can ask of this creature. And this creature has nothing to ask of you. Just walks by. And appearing like, free, majestic, independent, full of possibilities. And as the creature passes by and leaves your field of vision, you realize that this structure that has been, or that had been keeping you inside, was nothing but your own imagination, shaped, formed, and constructed by others with the same kind of imagination. of what a life is, or supposed to be, or could be for yourself. Who do you blame in such a situation? Who do you raise your fist towards? Who owes you everything that you have been missing as you were eagerly filling this bottle up with the expressions of your acts and yourself? And I think in some kind of way this sums up my biggest fear in this life so far. And it's the possibility, always present, that the life I'm living and the idea of what my life is and will be is nothing but, tiny little fraction of the vast amount of possibilities. And this could be only because you let yourself be guided and ruled by laws and reasonings that you did not form or earn yourself. Guidelines and rules that has been forced upon you, perhaps offered in a hope to be accepted by you, has been presented in such a way that you would have a really hard time to decline the offer. So again, who do you blame? I don't think you can blame anyone else, at least. Unless you're under big threat in some way. But we all live and abide these kind of guidelines and rules that has been perhaps inherited from the environment and surroundings. But most of the time I think they're just, the kind of restrictive wall that really doesn't exist. And the hardest part of it is to accept this and to just walk past it. Try not to look at the other people that would like you to stay behind those walls just because that would, enforce their own view on what this life could be. That's my fear. Thanks for listening.